Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to create this super easy watercolour card as part of my watercolour card series. This tutorial is aimed at complete beginners and people that have never used watercolour before. This is a really good way to learn basics on how to paint different types of flowers. And if you have used watercolour before, this is a really good way just to practice in general all your brush strokes and control of the paint. So let's get to it. So before I began the actual painting, I made sure I had all my materials ready to go. This just makes everything a little bit easier, you don't have to rummage through and find anything. I made sure as well I had a calligraphy pen. This was something I really wanted to try, and if I'm honest, before I actually start the painting, you have been warned, I am not a calligraphy artist. Do not claim to be a calligraphy artist, and if I'm honest, I actually really wasn't happy with how the calligraphy turned out for me. Please feel free to try this for yourself though. There are definitely YouTube videos out there on calligraphy. You can look on Pinterest, anything like that, but I will not be going over how I created my awful calligraphy for this tutorial. I also had 2 jars of water. I only have one on the camera as the other one just didn't fit in the frame. It's as simple as that. The one that you can see is the one I used to initially clean my brushes with, and then the second jar I used to further clean, and it meant that I didn't have to change the water as much. I've got all my watercolours in front of me as well, as I just wanted them all there in case I wanted to add a little bit more to a particular colour that I'll be pre-mixing in just a second. I think it's good to make sure you can see all your colours and know what you've got access to if you do want to change anything the further into the painting you get. So to begin with, for the actual painting, I used a very cold purple to recreate lavender. Now this is one of my favourite elements, as I think lavender is so dainty and pretty. I love lavender and it is super easy to paint. It is literally just dots on the paper. And I know this sounds very underwhelming, there's not that much explaining to be done for this, but all I did was put really tiny dots on the paper, made sure there wasn't a lot of paint on the brush, scraping off the excess, going in and putting in them dots and creating just that general lavender shape. So this watercolour painting is actually part of a wider series that I've created. It's a watercolour card painting series aimed at complete beginners. So if you've never used watercolour before, this is going to teach you how to create a wide variety of flowers if that is something that you're interested in. And this goes based on different colour palettes, sizes, different shapes. So many different aspects are going to be explored during this course. So if you're wanting to learn more about watercolour and how to create similar cards to the one that we're painting today, make sure you check out the links below and it will take you over to this course for you to take a look at. I also released the first tutorial in real time, completely for free over on my channel. Again, I will link that down below. Make sure you take a look, as it's really going in depth on how to create different types of flowers. And yeah, there's just a lot to gain, especially if you've never used watercolour before. You can also access my Patreon as well for a small monthly fee. You can access every single real-time tutorial I've ever created. So that's really precious and it means so much to me, all of your support. So yeah, make sure you check all of that out down below. Links to my social media, anything you can think of, you'll find down there. Now let's get back to the video. After adding a few pieces of lavender, I went in with the crimson to put in a few dots that were very close together. I did this in 3 little different sections. And again, this is really simple. The only thing to be conscious of, especially at this stage, is I was very aware that I wanted to add green later on, coming from the right and going over to the left as it worked up the paper. I thought this would be really nice in terms of structure for this particular card, as you can have all the botanicals working its way from the right coming out and then have that calligraphy in the top left. I thought that flow and balance between the 2 elements would look really nice. So you'll notice the majority of my flowers are angled towards the right at the bottom, and that is because I wanted to connect the green later on to this, and it just makes it a little bit more simple. I used some bright yellow as well to add in a couple of dainty flowers, and I didn't bunch these together, they're very singular and just dotted around the page. With 4 simple petals, nothing is touching in the middle, it doesn't matter if you want them to touch. Thought it'd look nice and more delicate if they didn't touch, just has more of that simplistic effect that I wanted for this card. And I also used more of a warm purple, so by this I mean it had a little bit more pink in there instead of blue, and I used this to put down the last of the flowers so far, and everything was very cohesive for this flower. I'd say this is the most difficult that we've painted so far, and that is because each side of this matches, nothing is touching, everything's very balanced and like flicking upwards almost. So yeah, that is something that I wanted to get down, and I left a big enough gap so that later on I could add the green in between all of that purple, and it looked like it flows really nicely and like fits into it. So yeah, I was very conscious that I wanted that green in there at some point. And for the last of each of these different styles that I'm painting, I put in the green to begin with for some bluebells. This made everything a little bit easier as the bluebells are like falling out of the green. So I wanted that green in there so I knew exactly where to put them. And with everything else that didn't matter, everything can connect to that very easily. But for the bluebells, that very curved green fine line was crucial to know where to actually put the blue. And to create the bluebells, all I did was create a very basic curve, almost like the letter N, like an N shape, horseshoe kind of style, and filled that in, and then put little flicks coming out from that. I thought that was a really small detail that you can add in, very thin flicks, and it just helps with that really cute dainty finish, which is definitely what I wanted to achieve for this painting, as it's all very small, all of the flowers are really tiny, and it just ties everything together very well. So once you're happy with how everything is looking, once you think you've got enough flowers down, go back in if you want to. You can add more of a particular flower you like, add more of everything if you're wanting everything to be really balanced. But once you're happy with the amount of flowers, you can go in with the green and really tie everything together. And this is a really crucial stage. As I say, not only ties everything together, but it brings all the colours almost to life. As the green's a little bit duller, I added a little bit of brown to it, and then the bright, vibrant petals, they're going to really stand out amongst this green. So I connected everything, and as I mentioned earlier, I love the fact that it comes out from the right and then works its way over to the left. I think this has a really unique feel to it, just because it's that little bit more slanted. Everything ties together so nicely, and it really leaves room for the calligraphy. It's almost like the flowers are pointing towards it, and I just love the way that this card feels. I'm really happy, very spring vibes, really happy with how it turns out. And of course, to finish, as always, I went in with every single colour that I used for this piece and just put a few dots in. Normally I'd do maybe like paint splatters, have everything a bit more natural and go crazy with it, see where it lands. But for this, because everything's very structured from the get-go, just put in a few dots in between all of the flowers and the green, and yeah, I was really happy. Just ties everything together in terms of colour, fills in a little bit more space, and still leaves room for that calligraphy. I've not gone into the space where I want to do that. And one of my personal favourite parts of this painting is the calligraphy is far enough away, so if I scan this over onto my laptop, I can edit out the calligraphy and put in any phrase, Happy Mother's Day, Happy Birthday, anything like that. So you can really recreate any cards with this, and I'm really happy that I'm able to do that. So that is it. That is everything you need to know about how to create this super easy watercolour card, and I really hope you've enjoyed painting along with me. Make sure to check out all the links below that I mentioned earlier for my social media, Patreon, the real-time tutorial, everything is down there, and I will see you next time for some more nature art themed content. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!